Hey everybody, Dave Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest is Meryl Johnston. She is behind the team at Bean Ninjas. Now, the name might sound familiar. We interviewed her a couple years ago. She hit this milestone where she got to six figures in 8 months. It was like rocket right outside of the gate. 6 figures, 8 months. We interviewed her on how she got to that milestone so quickly. Fast forward 4 years later, has now gone through a lot of growth challenges, has continued to grow. In fact, she was Bookkeeping Partner of the Year in 2019. And so she continues to get awards, she continues to grow. And she's learned a lot about navigating the different milestones it takes to scale up a bookkeeping firm and all the challenges that come with building out process, rebuilding out process, hiring the team, rehiring the team, all those fun things. But anyways, you didn't want to listen to me, you want to listen to Meryl. So first I'll say, Meryl, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, for firms that are listening and maybe not too familiar with Bean Ninjas, just a quick overview, like what's the team size, what kind of clients do you help, and like roughly like what size of client do you help, or like what do you typically charge them?
So our team size, we've got just over 15 people, and that's mostly full-time staff, but we do have a couple of part-time staff as well. Our niche we had no niche when we started, and then we moved into online businesses, which was still fairly broad. And within that, we mainly specialize now in e-commerce businesses and agencies, but we still have quite a few clients that have a SaaS, software as a service, or bloggers or something that's a little bit outside of that. And we're generally working with micro businesses, I'd call them, to small business. So when someone's just getting started, it's probably the cost benefit of outsourcing bookkeeping doesn't really make sense until they're getting into six figures, or maybe they're turning over 200,000 or 300,000 a year. But at that point, then we would start to work with clients, and then we have e-commerce clients up to 8 figures. So that might sound broad, but it's basically in that where a business is, it's not just the founder, they're starting to build a team, and then we work with them to help scale their business to the point that it makes sense to build an in-house finance team.
Yeah. And we won't dig too much into acquisition because I think we talked about it last time in the episode. So we'll link that up in the show notes. We were talking a bit about before we hit record, and kind of where I want to focus is you had this growth period, you're growing. I guess looking back, what were some key inflection points that you had to navigate as a firm owner? Because full disclosure for everybody listening, when we talked, you're like, man, I'm having fun. I love my firm. This is great. I empathize with that a lot. We had a lot of transitions in Jetpack Workflow where I had to go really in the weeds operational. Then I could kind of breathe a little bit. So I guess talk us through like the inflection points that you had to go through. Was it a head count? Was it a certain revenue size? Like, let's unpack kind of the growth story you've had.
For us, growth was never linear. So we'd go through just a spike in growth where we'd really focus on marketing and sales, and we'd grow. And then we realized our systems and our team were not designed for that size firm. And then it would be a mess. And then we'd really have to scramble and either try and hire the right people, which is a long process to hire and train staff. So you don't want to do that reactively. And we had a couple of inflection points like that. And we also didn't have the right system. So if I go back to when we were at the six-figure mark and we were growing fairly quickly, at that time, we used a team of contractors. And our goal with Bean Ninjas was always, my co-founder and I, to build ourselves out of service delivery. That's why we had moved into bookkeeping and not, I used to do accounting consulting. And the thought process behind that was that I wanted to build a team and systems to do delivery so I could focus on running the business. And one of the challenges we faced with having a team of contractors was we weren't always their first priority. It's not like having full-time staff where they love the team culture and they're really there for you and you're there for them. Our contractors had other jobs on the side. Some of them were growing businesses. And when we had a team of 10 contractors, things are really starting to get hard in terms of who's doing what, when can we really stand behind the timelines that we're committing to clients? Can we stand behind our quality? And that was really important to us that we wanted to be able to do that. And that was where we rethought our model in terms of hiring staff.
Yeah.
But moving to full-time staff actually brings a whole lot of other challenges. So that was one challenge we faced, and there's many others.
Yeah, and we'll time permitting, we'll definitely dig into the others. But I mean, I do these interviews all the time, and you always hear, well, I have a team of 8, but 4 are part-time, 4 are contractors, 4 are this, da 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 da. And it's interesting because you go into that route for cost reasons, right? Because you only pay when you get paid. In theory, there's some lag time there most often. But your point is, it's like you're not a priority. The firm's not a priority if they're part-time or contractor. They might have other gigs, might have other things to do. What was the financial difference for going full-time? Or was it just about confidence in the business?
It was both. So the type of people so we wanted to attract great talent, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect it, but at a bookkeeping firm, we've attracted people from firms like Ernst & Young, BDO, and they're career accountants. They're not looking for a side gig of bookkeeping. And we wanted to attract people like that, but they generally want a full-time role, or if we've also hired a lot of usually mums, a couple of fathers who want part-time work. So there is a financial commitment. It was more expensive for us to do that. And we couldn't just say we're moving 10 contractors to 10 employees. There was no way that we could do that financially. So we had to think about team structure, think about having our managers come on as team members first. And in some cases, we had to hire different people. There was a different skill set, different profile of person that was going to be a full-time team member and manager. So it probably took us a couple of years to actually transition. We knew that we wanted to do it, but we were a bootstrap business. At the time, we didn't have a lot of extra cash. We weren't even paying ourselves much. So that was one of the hard transitions. We knew where we wanted to get to, but we just couldn't physically do it all in one go.
Yeah. So if I hear correctly, the first full-time hire you would go after is somebody that can manage they could do the work themselves too. It's kind of this classic player coach. They can manage the team, and they can also step in and do the work. So that's kind of your first full-time hires, is that correct?
It is. And again, we didn't get it quite right in terms of the profile of person we had in that manager role in the beginning. And so and I think we've got it right now, but at the time, we had two different managers, and they didn't embody the kind of culture of the team that I wanted. I wanted young, motivated people that really wanted to improve and learn and grow and embrace technology and love our clients. And at the beginning, we didn't have that. And that really was a roadblock in hiring the right people, because great people don't want to work for managers that aren't like that. And again, that was didn't have experience hiring managers or really building teams prior to being ninjas. And so that was something I just had to learn through making mistakes.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more to dig into, but just to get together a list here. So moving part-time to full-time, big transition, took many years. Went for managers first. You learned a lot about culture fits and the type of people we want to attract. 'Cause you're right. They say people don't quit companies, they quit their boss, they quit their manager. So you want to get the right manager. What were some other challenges you had to go through during the operational in the trenches kind of gutting is probably too strong a word, but it's like gutting the firm and rebuilding it from scratch?
Another was removing myself from delivery. So in the first couple of years of Bean Ninjas, it was all about, we just need to get clients so that we can build up our MRR, our monthly recurring revenue. And then that gives us options to hire people, to invest in marketing, to build systems. We just need to get people in the door. And that meant that we were taking on clients that weren't our ideal client. And I was also doing more custom work than I wanted to be doing, and me being more hands-on, just to make sure we made these sales and we did a great job. But the challenge with that is, how do you undo that? Because you've set expectations with clients. I'd set expectations that I was going to be hands-on with some of these jobs, and that was not the direction I wanted to take the business. And again, that took me a couple of years to gradually remove myself from most of these relationships by introducing other team members, and then me gradually stepping back. And I also had to allow team members to make mistakes. So there was actually some clients that I kind of allowed us to lose, because I could have jumped in and saved it, but I decided that my team members needed to learn, and they needed to make mistakes. And really, if we lost a client due to something that they hadn't really thought through in the way they behaved, then that's a really powerful lesson. And it's not, as a leader, if I'm trying to scale a big business, then I can't be jumping in to save the day. I need to be coaching my team members and really giving them responsibility and the power to make decisions, which is quite hard to do as a business owner in the early days when every client counts. So that was only something I was able to do a couple of years in as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even to peel back the curtains on Jetpack, right? I don't write any code. I never wrote any code, and everybody's better for it. But like I was handling all sales and marketing up until last year. So there was like we had like a team of like 14 or 15, and I was still managing both of those things. And I waited way too long to extract myself from those. I mean, we had a lot of challenge hiring the right people. We tried multiple times, 3 times to hire the VP of sales, but it was I kind of like those things, so it wasn't the end of the world if we didn't fill them, but it was dramatically hindering the next level of the business by keeping those. Like just like you with those clients, you could do it, you probably like doing it in some regards, but it's stopping your ultimate goal if you continue to do it, even though it's bringing in short-term revenue.
Exactly. It's about thinking long-term. So what's the trade-off between what you do now to achieve something short-term and how long it's going to take to, or whether you're ever going to get there with your long-term goals?
Yeah. Well, as like now that you've kind of scaled up, I mean, what do you spend your time focusing on?
Yeah, there's interesting. So if you'd asked me that pre-COVID, I had a different answer.
Okay. Do you want to do a pre-COVID, post-COVID?
Yeah, sure.
So let's do pre-COVID, normal world. What were you focusing on?
So pre-COVID, I had been working for many years to scale myself out of the business, and that was possible. So I had a daughter in early of 2019, and I was able to completely step out of the business. I took maternity leave, didn't check emails for about a month, and then I came back part-time. And I had basically had my organizational chart and made sure that there was someone in every other box handling someone got hired while I was away, and so we had a process around that. Our internal accounting ran fine. We actually grew. We made sales while I wasn't there. So I made sure that I built a team that could run without me. And that was my original goal. And so when I came back, I was enjoying that and mainly focusing on sales and marketing and coaching team members. So we've got a leadership team at Ninjas, but I also mentor some of the other key bookkeepers. And I really enjoy doing that. So that was all fine. I was speaking at events, writing content and mentoring, and really enjoying that. And also looking for revenue share or investment opportunities. And we can, if we've got time, we can talk about that. We've done one of those so far, and I'm looking to do more of those. So that was pre-COVID. And then the pandemic hit, and it was a great opportunity to look at our business critically and think about what are all of the scenarios here? What's a worst case look like? And are we prepared for that? Do we have things in place? Mm-hmm. And it was a bit of a tough time. We were lucky in that we were already set up as a remote team, and many of our clients, or our specialization is online businesses. So not that many of our clients were impacted, but definitely some were in industries like tourism. But for us, it was a chance to rethink everything. Do we have the right team? Do we have the right structure? Are we charging the right prices? Are we in the right industry? And one of the things that came out of that was that we decided we're really going to double down on e-commerce, which is a segment of online businesses, and specialize in that, and also move up market. So at the beginning of this interview, I talked about, well, we work with businesses that, if they're turning over a couple of 100,000 a year, then it makes sense to work with us. Realize we want to work with bigger businesses, but to do that, we need to improve all of our processes. A sales process is different when you're working with bigger businesses. Onboarding is different. Delivery is different, and the way that we manage relationships is different. The expectations are higher, or the high prices that we're charging. And so at the moment, I've actually come back into Ninjas as a consultant, and I've got about 8 different projects that I'm doing a couple at a time to really help us move up market. So at the moment, we're moving to a new CRM, and we're also remapping our onboarding process. And there's many other projects that relate to us moving up market. And when I say consultant, I was very cautious in how we framed that, because I just spent almost 5 years building myself out of the business, and I didn't want to come flying back in and disrupt the leadership team that we have. And we've got great decision-making processes. I really didn't want to come in and change that, but I knew that we needed help to get these projects delivered.
Got it. So we mentioned a couple of things. So really quick, the leadership team, what are the titles of the folks on that team? Like who's in that team?
So there's Director of Cloud Accounting Services, and all of our accountants report in to her. She's got a couple of supervisors, and then they manage their teams. Mm-hmm. We have a COO. So he's basically, everyone reports to him. So the Director of Cloud Accounting Services reports to him, HR and Finance reports to him. The only area that doesn't is marketing, which is the area that I run in the business. I'm just going to pause for a sec. The sun is streaming straight in. So just give me a sec. I can't actually see you.
No worries. Sorry. No worries. Yeah, so I think what's really interesting, so I'll kind of riff on a lot of what we learned about so far is I think it's really interesting that as firms grow, they tend to niche down. And I think, Meryl, I was just riffing on the concept of like, you think about growth and you always think about, well, what's the new thing? What new industries are going to take on? And I hear it time and time again in many different industries, service, tech, whatever, is when you niche down further, you actually gain more insights. Like your e-commerce clients, well, it's more than just e-commerce. They're small, medium, large. Each one's a little bit different. Each one has unique needs. Each one has unique service options. Each one has unique communications. Each one has a unique sales channel or way of buying. So you could go further niched into your niches, I guess. But anyways, you were talking about your leadership team. So you have the Director of Cloud Accounting Services. You have your COO. So HR and Finance and the Director of Cloud Accounting report to your COO, and then marketing reports to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something like the company or the firm has a decision, like the way they make decisions. Can you unpack what that means?
So we've got a delegation of authority matrix, which just means it's just to help people with, well, what decisions can I make? So can I make a purchase over $1,000? Well, yes, you can if you're this person, and then no, you can't. If you're only a supervisor, then you need to check with your manager. So that was to help with simple decisions. And then with bigger decisions, we have a weekly management or leadership team meeting. We follow some of EOS, Entrepreneurs Operating System, from Traction. And part of that is the weekly level 10 meeting where we go through our financial dashboards, and also we go through any decisions or issues that need to be discussed. And so it's in that meeting that we discuss it, and it's the COO that gets to, he has the final say on everything apart from things that are at a shareholder or a board level. And so that's a conscious decision of mine that even if I don't like it, he's in charge of running the business. So I can share my thoughts, but ultimately it's up to him because I want him to feel accountability and ownership.
And what kind of decisions would be at the shareholder owner level? Like what's an example where something would get kicked off from the L10 into the shareholder world?
It would be very rare. It would just be something like if we were issuing new shares.
I see.
Or something that requires board approval, which would happen once every 2 years. It's not something that would be common.
Yeah. And the way you enact EOS, so you have these issues that come up. They're kind of maybe short-term, maybe mid-term blockers. The COO has the final call. Are you then are you making the decision to go upstream at e-com? Is that still on your plate and you're directing that, or is the COO doing some of that strategic guidance?
So he's thinking that through, and he's actually the face of e-commerce. I do groundwork. So I did my own research. We did a whole lot of competitive analysis around the e-commerce industry, looked at who our competitors were, where are the opportunities, why would we pick e-commerce? Because we feel like it's a growing industry. Look at the growth of Shopify. We did a whole lot of research around that. So I did my own research and then I shared my thoughts, but he also had done his research. The Director of Cloud Accounting sees our clients and knows the profitability of our portfolio of e-commerce compared to other clients. So everyone kind of comes in with their opinions. Yeah, so I do my own research, but also he's the visionary of that part of the business. So it's really up to him to drive the strategy, but I will come in and question or provide my thoughts as well. And he's open to that because also, I've been involved in growing Bean Ninjas. So hopefully he thinks I've got some good ideas to bring to the table as well. But I'm really there to help him.
Cool. Yeah, that's amazing. We'll link up Traction. It's come up a couple times in the episode. And what was the other thing? You called it the authority matrix. What did you call it? The authority tree?
A delegation of authority. That's just something, when I was working in corporate, a lot of businesses had a delegation of authority matrix.
Yeah.
And it normally works when you've got 50 or 100 people and everyone needs to know, well, what can I do myself, and what do I need, and where do I need to, and who do I go to make a particular decision? So we've just got a very simple one. It's just on one page.
Yeah, really cool. Well, I need to know, I know we're going to be bumping up against our time here, but I have to ask, so unpack this investment Revshare opportunity. I think those words have never been spoken before on the podcast. So what are you up to? What are you cooking? What does this mean?
We've actually released an episode on the Bean Ninjas podcast where the guy that I did the investment with shared his story, and we kind of talked through how it all came about. And so I can tell you the story of this particular one. A guy called Michael, he joined Bean Ninjas as a team member a couple of years ago, but when he applied for a job, but we didn't actually even have a job open, he pitched me that he wanted to be a partner in Bean Ninjas one day. And I thought, okay, I like this guy. He's ambitious. He's confident. He's kind of selling me on his skills. And so he joined the firm with that goal in mind, and he rotated through all different areas of the business, including doing bookkeeping for a while. And then when we were going through the conversations around, well, what would it look like for him to run a portfolio and have ownership? And we're doing financial modeling around that. What would be required for him to achieve his income goals, and what would the team size look like? How many clients would he need? He realized, hang on, I don't think I want to run a bookkeeping business.
Yeah.
This is going to cramp. He's a surfer and a traveler, thinking this is going to restrict my lifestyle. And so then we were back to the drawing board, and he still wanted to own a business, and he is a chartered accountant, which is like a US CPA. And he's got a great skill set. I saw he had a whole lot of potential. And so then we figured out, well, what kind of business do you want to run? And so he realized, well, he loves coaching. And so he's gone off and built under the Bean Ninjas brand, but in a separate entity. He's building a financial coaching business for agencies. So he can leverage our client base to sell his coaching services. And then I'm also helping him and mentoring him about how to grow his business. And so I'm an investor in his business.
Oh, that's really cool. So you're really leveraging both your experience and your distribution model to potentially bring new product services to market.
Yes. And that's something I'm interested in exploring, because we invest a lot of resources into growing our brand. And I'm looking at, well, how can I do something that's not just selling time for money? And part of that in Bean Ninjas is building our own IP, so our own systems and processes, and becoming experts in e-commerce and building frameworks around that. I see that as something we can leverage that's not just selling time for money. And then something like a brand or investing in other businesses, again, is something that's a bit more leveraged than getting paid $100 or $200 an hour for, or whatever you charge for accounting services.
Yeah, and it's such a great example of having a service business using either the distribution or potential cash flow to invest in assets that may be appreciated at a faster rate than a service business, right?
This is one of my favorite topics. I follow Rob Walling, and he's got a framework called the Stair method, which is about, as an entrepreneur, you start small, you build your skill set, and you build businesses that generate cash flow. And then as you grow, you can try more complex business models, which usually require more cash to get going. So a SaaS business model has the potential to scale, but also requires more resources in the beginning to get it up and running than something like consulting. And I would see Bean Ninjas is a productized service. So it's kind of in the middle. It was harder to start than a consulting business. It required more resources and investment to build our processes, but has more scale than my consulting business. But the idea is to leverage what we're doing with Bean Ninjas. Again, it's a good cash flow generator to invest in assets and to build products. And so another example of that is us building online courses. And that was something I did in 2019. So we've got 2 courses that we sell. And again, that's a bit more scalable than the service delivery model. But again, you've got to pay to build the courses, or it took me a long time to create them. So you don't get paid immediately.
Yeah, I love that model. And for folks, listening now, and obviously we're going to talk about the resources you provided, but what are some resources even outside of your website that you look to get inspiration, to get great ideas? You mentioned Rob Walling, and we'll link him up in the show notes. Are there other folks like Rob or communities you follow that you feel have been really impactful in your journey?
Yeah, another guy is Brian Cassell, and he runs the Productize and Scale community.
Yeah.
And I try and, the way that I built Bee Ninjas is more based on the productized service business model than it is a traditional accounting firm model. So he's been influential, and I read a lot. So I'm actually setting myself a challenge to read a book every 2 weeks for this coming financial year. And I've read, a ton of business books. I've mentioned Traction, Built to Scale is another favorite. Deep Work by Cal Newport. I mean, I read lots. I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's probably, I could go for a long time on this topic, but hopefully that's a good start.
We'll link them up. Yeah, Built to Sell is amazing. You mentioned Traction, Deep Work. We'll link it up. Cal Newport, by the way, has a great article. It was on. It's called Why Remote Work is So Hard and How It Can Be Fixed, and it was in the New Yorker. So if you haven't seen the article, I'll paste it over to you as well. So that's amazing. We'll link it up in the show notes. If somebody's listening right now and maybe they have an investment idea they want to send your way, maybe they want to take one of your courses, maybe they just want to reach out and say thank you for coming on today's interview, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
There's a couple of ways. So LinkedIn, I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn, and it's just my name, Meryl Johnston. I have a personal website that's about to go live, and probably by the time the show's published, it will be live, and that's meryljohnston.com. Or if it's a Bee Ninjas inquiry, then that's beeninjas.com, and we've got an inquiry form that you can fill out there. So if it's a personal thing, then LinkedIn's probably the best.
Amazing. If you're listening to this interview and you're jogging, skipping, running after I have a small child, maybe running after a small child who's in that phase where like he's running, sprinting everywhere, and you got to chase him dogs. So maybe that's you. And you couldn't write down all the notes, all the book recommendations, all the takeaways and frameworks and tips and tactics that we talked about today. You can always go to jetpackworkflow.com/blog, jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll do a full 1,000+ word write-up. We're going to link the website you mentioned. We're going to link the frameworks mentioned, link the books that you mentioned, link folks like Rob and Brian and everybody else. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with a fellow firm owner and leave a review. Help us get the word out. And Meryl, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Fun chat.